3 a.m. Shocking truth. Poor Maid exposes billionaire's dark secret. But what happens next? At 3 in the morning, when the world should be silent and still, a shattering scream echoed through the halls of the opulent mansion belonging to the reclusive billionaire, Victor Hargrove. His wealth was legendary, rumored to dwarf entire countries, but behind the gilded walls lurked shadows darker than any night. What happened next sent chills down the spine of even the bravest souls who dared to peek into the Hargrove estate. The maid, Emily, only 22 and fresh from small-town dreams, stumbled upon a secret that would change everything. She never expected to find a hidden room, let alone one that smelled of secrets and betrayal. As she pushed open the creaking door, a gust of stale air rushed past her, carrying the scent of dampness and something metallic. Inside, disheveled papers were strewn about, flickering images from a monitor danced in the dim light. They showed bruises, desperate faces, the unmistakable mark of someone trying to escape a life of torment. Emily's heart raced, and every instinct screamed for her to turn back. But curiosity clawed at her chest as tightly as fear. She felt that if she walked away now, she might never know the truth. Then she heard it, a low, chilling voice echoing from behind the monitor. It was a voice she recognized. Victor Hargrove, speaking with such calm menace, as if rehearsed. If they find out, the words hung in the air like a guillotine waiting to drop. Was he talking about the people on the screen? Her stomach flipped as thoughts raced through her mind. What had she stumbled into? What was he really up to? She could feel a tight knot forming in her throat. The tension was unbearable. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Emily felt the weight of the world crashing down on her. Victor wasn't just a businessman. He was the puppeteer of a dark conspiracy. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for anything that could explain this chaos. Photos of people, scratched out names, unfinished letters begging for help. She had uncovered evidence of something horrifying, something that could bring a titan like Hargrove to his knees. But what would it cost her? The doubt knotted tighter, constricting her breath. Each second stretched into an eternity as she processed what she had found. She thought about the innocent lives caught in Victor's web. Every flicker from that monitor became a heartbeat of fear pulsating through her veins. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer to the screen, drawn by the urgency of truth. But before she could gather her thoughts, the door slammed shut behind her, plunging her into darkness. What happened next was beyond anything Emily could imagine. Would she find a way out, or would she be trapped in the very nightmare she had stumbled upon? As shadows closed in around her, one thing became clear: this was just the beginning. Who would pay the price for the secrets she was about to unveil? The air turned thick as panic swelled in Emily's chest. The darkness enveloped her like a suffocating blanket, and the silence was deafening. She pressed her back against the cold wall, her heart hammering in her ears. Every second felt like an eternity, and the echo of Victor's chilling voice hung heavily in her mind. If they find out, what if someone caught her here? The thought made her limbs feel heavier, as if lead replaced her blood. She couldn't let fear win. Not now. She had to think. Emily squinted her eyes, trying to adjust to the faint light seeping through cracks in the doorframe. She needed a plan. Fumbling around, her fingers grazed the desk littered with papers. They felt damp, greasy. If only she could find something useful. Then came a sound, scraping. Emily froze. The door. It stirred slightly, like a breath ready to escape. Time slowed, and every instinct told her to run. But where? The hidden room had no windows. Her only escape route had been bolted shut, and she could feel the panic rising again, boiling over. Stay calm, she whispered to herself. She could hear footsteps now, heavy and deliberate. The unmistakable sound of Victor himself, prowling close, searching for her like a predator scenting its prey. He was here, just beyond the door, and that realization sent a jolt through her. What was he going to do? She had uncovered too much. There was a shuffling sound on the other side. Emily's heart pounded as she pressed herself tighter against the wall. She held her breath, praying he wouldn't sense her presence. The footsteps grew louder, and with every passing second, the terror surged within her. If he knew she was here, then silence. Emily's pulse raced in the quiet, and she dared to peer around the corner of the desk. The door was still closed, but she could hear Victor's voice again, a quiet murmur this time. We need to move quickly. She can't know. She couldn't decipher the rest. Her mind raced to connect the dots, as she formulated a terrible thought. She wasn't just a witness. She was now part of something far more sinister. She needed to get out. She spotted a small gap where the door slightly parted from the frame. If she could push it open just enough to slip out unnoticed, holding her breath once more, she edged closer. Her hand reached for the doorknob, trembling. But as she began to turn it, the door jerked suddenly, and in that moment, everything changed. Emily, a voice shouted, sending a shockwave through her. It was Sarah, the maid from 2 floors down. How had she known? You need to get out. Now. Emily's heart leaped. There was no time for questions, just instinct. Together, they bolted straight towards the hidden exit Sarah had found. But Victor's shadow loomed closer, a vengeful figure carving through the darkness. Just when she thought they could slip away unnoticed, the lights flickered, illuminating the room for a breathless moment. Emily's eyes widened in horror. The images on the monitor came alive, revealing faces she recognized. Women from nearby neighborhoods, missing posters flashing in her mind. Each name sliced through her, carving a reality far grimmer than she had imagined. We are all part of this, she realized. Sarah grabbed her arm, pulling her towards the exit just as Victor's voice boomed through the hallway. You think you can run? The urgency of escape clenched around her heart as they raced through the narrow corridor, adrenaline fueling their every step. Would they make it out alive, or was the darkness closing in faster than they could flee? The walls seemed to shrink, shadows creeping along the edges like hungry ghosts as they neared the door. Everything felt surreal, a terrifying film playing out before them. But Emily knew one thing for sure. She wasn't just running from Victor anymore. She was running towards the truth, and it was more dangerous than she ever fathomed. What awaited her beyond the door might not be salvation. What would she risk to expose the truth further, now that she was in so deep? Even if it meant staring darkness directly in the eye? The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on her shoulders as she glimpsed the exit ahead. And suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed around her, sending her resolve teetering. Would they both escape? Or had they walked straight into a trap? Emily and Sarah flung themselves through the door just as Victor's furious shout reverberated behind them. The hallway ahead was a blur. They sprinted into the dimly lit corridor, weaving between shadows that danced with dread. Emily's heart raced, pounding in her chest like a desperate drum calling for salvation. Go, go, Sarah urged, her voice laced with fear, pulling Emily along. It felt surreal, like they were characters in a horror movie. But this was all too real, and there were no scripts written for how to escape a monster as they ran. The flickering lights overhead cast fleeting glimpses of their surroundings. Everything looked so much darker now. Emily glanced back just in time to see the door fly open, Victor's silhouette emerging like a demon summoned from the depths. He let out a sound that stopped Emily dead in her tracks, a low, mocking laugh. It sent chills through her entire body, icy fingers creeping along her spine. No, Emily shouted, shaking off the paralysis that threatened to stall her retreat. They couldn't stop now. Each footfall echoed in the quiet horror of the hallway, growing fainter as they moved further away. They rounded a corner, almost crashing into a wall before Sarah yanked her back, navigating through forgotten corners of the mansion. Where do we go? Emily gasped, desperation pooling in her voice. Each breath was a struggling whisper, fear clawing at her throat. We can't go back to that room. There's a way out through the kitchen, but it's risky. We'll have to. A loud crash echoed behind them. Victor was gaining. You might want to run a little faster, came his taunting voice, slicing through the stillness and shattering whatever last remnants of calm they had left. Panic surged anew, each sound amplifying their terror as Emily's mind raced. They had to get to safety. They had to get help. But the maze of hallways twisted like a labyrinth, their senses overwhelmed by the weight of uncertainty. They dashed into the kitchen, hastily maneuvering around the tables stacked high with plates and utensils. The air was thick with the smell of something left over, something dark and rotting, mirroring the decay of their hope. Sarah led, her eyes darting towards the back door. "Almost there," she shouted, but the moment was broken by another sound, an unmistakable thud. The heaviness of footsteps grew louder, echoing ominously through the kitchen like a countdown to a timer. Emily's breath quickened as they surged towards the exit. Just as they reached the door, Sarah's pull shifted into a frantic shove. "Open it! Quickly!" Grabbing the cold metal handle, Emily's fingers slipped, smeared with some grease from the countertop. Second thoughts raced through her mind. What if Victor was just behind them, ready to pounce? What if this door led to nowhere? But the loud thud of footsteps had transformed into a palpable presence, and that fear was enough to push her forward. With one last heave, she flung the door open, a gust of stale air hitting her like a wave. "Go!" she screamed, shoving Sarah forward and scrambling after her into the dark alleyway beyond. It was dimly lit by a flickering street lamp, a tiny beacon of hope that felt worlds away from the terror they left behind. But the moment of relief was short-lived. "There!" Sarah pointed down the alley, her eyes wide with surprise. A black van loomed in the shadows, ominously parked with no sign of who might be inside. "What if it's him?" Emily stammered, doubt creeping in. Every instinct warned her to turn back. "Better than Victor," Sarah insisted, pulling Emily once more. "Whoever's in there might help us." They rushed toward the van, uncertainty clawing at them with each step. Just as they neared it, the side door slid open, and in the moonlight, a figure emerged, a man whose face they couldn't see clearly. "Get in, quick." Emily hesitated, searching the man's face for any signs of deceit. A siren blared in the distance, a horrible reminder that time was running out. Behind them, she heard Victor's voice rise again, filled with fury and certainty. "Don't let her get away." Emily's heart lurched. This wasn't just about escape anymore. This was a choice, a risk that could cost everything. Could she trust what lay inside that van, or was it another trap waiting to ensnare her? With seconds feeling like hours, Sarah grabbed Emily's arm, pushing her toward the open door. "It's now or never," she urged. The door closed with a resolute thud behind them, sealing their choice in darkness. "Who are you?" Emily's voice trembled as they stepped deeper into the shadows. But as the van pulled away and the night swallowed them whole, she felt an uneasy thrill. What awaited them beyond this ride? And most terrifying of all, what had they left behind in that suffocating mansion? The van jerked forward, its engine growling like a beast awakened from slumber. Emily's heart thrummed in her chest, each bump in the road punctuating the uncertainty swirling inside her. The man driving, his face still obscured by shadows, glanced occasionally in the rearview mirror, a tightness around his lips as if he could feel the weight of their fear. "Where's he?" Emily asked between breaths, the question slipping out before she could hold it back. Panic knotted her stomach. Victor's voice still echoed in her mind, a menacing reminder that danger was too close. "Just drive," Sarah hissed, her eyes darting around the dark, cramped space. "Get us away from him." The man didn't reply. Instead, he accelerated, the van wrenching with the force. Emily grasped the seat, her knuckles white with tension. She could feel Sarah's gaze burning into her, worry radiating like a glow from a distant ember. "What if this is a mistake?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible above the roar of the engine. Before Sarah could respond, the man barked, "I said to sit tight. We'll lose him." His tone was harsh, but there was an undercurrent urgency mingled with fear. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being a pawn in someone else's game, an unwitting player in a plot that had turned darker than she ever anticipated. A sudden jolt made her grip the seat tighter. The alleyways blurred outside, swallowed by night, and for a fleeting moment, Emily felt a pang of despair. They had escaped the monster, but what if this new face was just another mask hiding a greater evil? They reached a deserted intersection, the kind of place where old streetlights flickered ominously. With little warning, the man veered sharply onto a poorly lit side street. Emily felt the adrenaline spike. Where were they heading? The van rattled violently as he turned. "Where are we going?" Emily demanded, breathless. The air was thick with an unwelcome tension. "I need to make sure we're safe before I explain," he replied, his expression focused ahead, eyes narrowed. Sarah leaned in closer to Emily, whispering, "What if he's working for Victor? What if we just traded one threat for another?" "I can't think like that," Emily said, her voice tight. "We need answers, and we need help." The resolution in her voice surprised even herself. They had crossed a point of no return. They couldn't let fear dictate their next move. The man brought the van to a stop and switched off the engine. Silence engulfed them, dragging over the vehicle like a heavy blanket. In the dim light, Emily could see shadows bending awkwardly, felt the claustrophobic energy pulsing in the air. "Just stay put," the man said, finally turning to face them. "This is for your own good." His eyes glimmered in the darkness, a flash that felt both like a warning and an invitation. "What do you know about Victor?" Emily pressed, desperation curling her voice. "A lot," he replied, his gaze flickering between Emily and Sarah. "But not everything. I can help you if you can trust me." The urgency in his words was palpable, yet uncertainty tightened its grip around Emily's heart. She wanted so badly to believe him, but what solid evidence did she have? Victor's terrifying laughter still echoed, a reminder that danger was rarely ever just a heartbeat away as they sat tense in the silence. Faint sirens echoed in the distance, cutting the stillness. Time was running out. "We need to get away from here," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. "Hold on." The man's voice cracked with intensity. He turned back towards the front, and before Emily could grasp what was happening, he shot the van into gear, tires screeching on the asphalt. Emily exchanged a glance with Sarah, both their faces pale with uncertainty. Where were they racing to? Suddenly, their flash of momentum was interrupted by a collision and impact that shook the van to its core. The world outside exploded into chaos, blinding lights and shattering sounds spilling into the confines of their vehicle. Emily's breath hitched as pain shot through her body. Had Victor found them? As the chaos unfolded, one thought crystallized in Emily's mind. Whatever lay ahead was no longer just about survival. It was a confrontation of truths that would either break them apart or bind them closer than ever. But was the man beside them part of their salvation or their doom? In that moment, she knew they had crossed a threshold. The answers, whatever they were coming. The impact sent a shockwave through Emily's body, her head snapping against the side window. Stars danced in her vision, blurring the scene outside into a surreal painting of flashing lights and distant shouts. Pain radiated from her temple, and she instinctively raised her hand to check for blood. "Emily, are you okay?" Sarah's voice was frantic, breaking through the haze. "I think so," Emily gasped, shaking herself awake. The jolt had scattered her thoughts, but she pushed through the fog, trying to make sense of their new reality. The man in the front seat was still gripping the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He turned slowly, a mixture of frustration and urgency on his face. "Stay down," he shouted over the din outside. "They'll be looking for survivors." Emily's heart pounded harder at the implication. They were targets now, not just victims of a random accident, but pawns caught in a dangerous chess match that she didn't fully understand. "What do you mean?" Sarah nearly shouted. "Who is looking for us?" Before the man could respond, a loud thud came from the back of the van, rattling the metal frame like a moth trapped in a jar. "Not now," he hissed, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "We need to move. Aren't you going to explain?" Emily pressed, her fear coiling tighter with every second. "Why are they coming for us?" "I'll explain when we're safe, just trust me." His voice held an edge, one that suggested he was out of options. It was in that moment of desperate uncertainty that a figure stepped into the glare of a nearby streetlight. Emily squinted through the darkness. Had someone else survived the crash? The silhouette seemed familiar, but her mind raced trying to place it. "Is that—" "No," Sarah whispered, her expression shifting from fear to shock. The figure approached as shadows danced under the flickering light. Emily's heart sank. It was Victor, his swagger unmistakable even from a distance. He moved with a confidence that struck fear into the very fabric of her being. "Go. Go now," the man shouted, the urgency brimming in his voice, but the van refused to budge. Emily felt panic rising like bile. The vehicle was stuck, and the looming figure of Victor was inching closer. "Open the door." Sarah cried, but the man shot her a look, his eyes wild. No. Are you insane? We can't let him in. Victor's voice boomed, dripping with the honeyed charm that Emily had once mistaken for warmth. Emily, Sarah? Don't be fools. I'm here to help you. Help? Emily's voice cracked, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. You think we would believe you? Then you'll die here. He snapped, his tone shifting. I'll give you a choice. Open the door, or I'll make sure you wish you hadn't tea. The weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest. A moment of silence lingered, thick with anticipation as they all processed the threat he posed. Emily glanced at Sarah, whose eyes reflected her own turmoil. What do we do? The man's breathing quickened, his gaze darting between the window and the two girls. I'll take care of him, but I need you two to trust me. We'll get away, I promise. Could she trust him? What choice did they have? Before she could answer, a loud bang shook the van. An explosion of shattered glass erupted around them, and Emily screamed as shards flew, ricocheting across the cramped space. Drive. The man reacted in an instant, the van sputtering to life as darkness closed in. But Emily's mind reeled. They were trapped not just by metal and glass, but by the choices they hadn't made, by the shadows that swallowed their resolve. What would they face next? In the chaos, the questions loomed heavier than the danger. Would they find safety, or would the revelation of truth lay waste to their fragile bond? The last thing she saw before the van lurched into motion was Victor's face, twisted with rage, silhouetted against the splintered glow of the streetlights. What were they running towards? The night had only just begun. The van jolted forward, tires screaming against the asphalt as the engine roared to life. Emily's heart raced in her chest, a thundering drum that matched the chaos outside. Dark shapes moved in the frenzied glow of the streetlights, shadows that threatened to engulf them. Faster, Sarah shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of fear. The man in front gritted his teeth, his hands clenching the steering wheel as he steered into the fray of night. Emily forced herself to breathe, the overwhelming sense of danger wrapping around her like a snake. Each moment stretched, a taut wire ready to snap. What are we running from? She managed to ask, her voice shaky. She could barely hear her own words over the chaos. The least we talk about that, the better, he replied sharply, his eyes focused on the road ahead. Let us just focus on getting out of here. The van swerved as debris from the crash littered their path. Emily glanced back through the shattered window, her stomach sinking as she caught sight of Victor. He had darted after them, a predator determined to catch its prey. She could see the spark of something dark in his eyes, and it chilled her to the bone. What if he catches up? Sarah whimpered, her fear palpable. What if he enough? The man cut in. We can't think like that. We need to lose him. But how could they lose someone so relentless? Victor was a force of nature, and she could hear his laughter echoing in her mind, taunting her. The man took a sharp turn down a narrow alley. Emily gripped the seat, her nails digging into the fabric as they sped around the corner. Closed buildings loomed over them, shadows swallowing the little light that filtered in. Then they hit a bump, and Emily's stomach dropped. She closed her eyes, bracing for impact. But instead, it was silence. They had landed in a dimly lit clearing where the noise of the city was dulled, replaced by the sound of her hurried breathing. What now? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Shuhi whispered, peering through the darkened windows. Emily followed suit, straining her eyes. The alley was empty, eerily still, but something in her gut told her they weren't safe yet. A muffled voice broke the silence. They can't hide forever. Emily's heart sank as she recognized Victor's tone, now distant but still chilling. He was out there, searching for them. Get down low, the man ordered. They crouched together, fear coursing through Emily's veins. What does he want? Me. The man's voice was quiet, heavy with resignation. And you. We are caught in something bigger than us, and if he finds you, he won't hold back. What could be bigger than this? Sarah asked, her voice a hushed whimper. Their eyes met in the dim light. Something unspoken passed between them, a shared understanding of dread. Listen, he continued, his voice growing urgent. I need you to trust me. We have to find a way out of this, but we need to move. Just then, a shadow darted past the van. Emily held her breath, fear squeezing her lungs. Go, go, the man urged as he turned the key again, the engine sputtering to life once more. Fingers trembling, Emily clutched Sarah's hand, and they jolted forward. Adrenaline coursed through her, igniting a flame of urgency. As they raced down the alley, the distant sound of footsteps echoed behind them. The hunt was on. Their reality was spiraling into nightmare territory, and what lay ahead was shrouded in darkness. Each twist and turn sharpened the risk of capture. But deeper down, one question echoed louder than the rest. What truth was Victor after, and why did it involve all of them? Emily shivered, knowing they were trapped in a web, and time was running out. Hold on tight. We're going to need each other now more than ever, the man warned. But the weight of his words made her stomach churn. The night was only just beginning, and what they would uncover could change everything, or end it all. The van barreled down the alley, the engine screaming in defiance, but the chase echoed in her ears louder than anything else. Emily felt Sarah's grip tighten on her hand, as if they could squeeze the fear right out of each other. Every bump in the road jolted them further into panic. Is he still behind us? Emily choked out, the words barely escaping her dry throat. Focus on the road, the man shouted, his eyes scanning every corner and crevice, searching for an escape. They flew past flickering streetlights, their shadowy glow illuminating the grim reality outside. Emily stole a glance back. The darkness swallowed Victor, but the cold bite of his presence loomed close behind. It was as if the night itself conspired with him, hiding his movements until the very last moment. Faster, Sarah cried, and the desperation in her voice rang like a bell tolling for doom. Just a bit longer. The man reassured, but even he sounded strained. He shifted the gears, pushing the van past its limits, each roar of the engine punctuating the night with defiance. Suddenly, the street opened up, revealing a wider road lined with old warehouses and crumbling buildings. It felt like a trap laid out just for them. There was a nagging gut feeling Victor would come for them here. Where do we go now? Emily asked, panic clawing at her throat. Toward the docks, he ordered, providing a grim destination. If we can reach the waterfront, we might find a way out. Emily squeezed Sarah's hand tightly, steeling herself against the fear that surged like a tidal wave. They were moving into dark waters now, both literally and metaphorically. As they veered toward the docks, the looming shadows of the warehouses transformed into prison-like structures. And then, something in the corner of her eye froze her heart. Victor, now a sinister specter against the dim lights, had somehow reappeared, emerging from the darkness with a predatory stride. There he is, Sarah yelled, her voice high and trembling, gripping the seat as if it could somehow shield her. Don't look, the man snapped, his voice sharp and urgent. Keep going. But Emily couldn't tear her eyes away. There was a chilling calmness in Victor's movements, almost like he was toying with them. With every confident step, he closed the distance, leaving behind the chaos of the earlier pursuit. The van hit a pothole hard, sending them lurching forward. Emily's heart raced even faster. What does he want with us? You'll find out when he catches us. The man shouted, voice taut as a stringed I. In that moment, the engine sputtered again. Not good. The noise fell flat like a dying breath in the night. Emily's heart sank. They were running on borrowed time. Suddenly, the man swerved the van sharply, cutting left into another narrow alley, one hardly wide enough for the vehicle. Metal scraping against metal screeched as they barely fit through, the van shivering with the effort. Are we safe? Sarah whimpered as they huddled down, a waft of rust and oil filling their lungs. The man started but was cut off as the lights of Victor's car flooded the alley, trapping them in a chilling spotlight. Jolts of adrenaline surged as the man threw the van into reverse, tires screeching desperately against the asphalt. One glance through the rearview mirror, and Emily could see Victor's menacing grin reflected back at her, full of confidence and control. We're not safe. We need to. A loud crack interrupted her, followed by a whirlwind of shattered glass spraying inside the van. Emily gasped, her heart racing harder than ever. Get down. The man screamed again, but it was too late. The van rocked, the feeling of doom hanging heavy in the air like a storm about to unleash its core. As they ducked, a wave of intense darkness swirled around them. Was it just fear, or something more sinister? They were deep in the lion's den now, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Drive. Just go? Sarah yelled, her face pale and frantic. But the word drive hung in the air ominously, echoing with risks they could not fathom. Who would emerge victorious from this night? Victor, with his insatiable hunger for control? Or could they somehow escape the grasp of his relentless pursuit? Emily's breath caught in her throat as she realized their escape wasn't merely physical. It was a question of life and death. And in the darkness, the answer loomed closer than she could imagine. What horrifying truth lay in waiting just beyond the shadows? The van shook violently as the bullet struck, metal crumpling under the force. Emily felt a shiver crawl up her spine. The air was thick with chaos, but her thoughts raced even faster, fueled by fear and desperation. The man behind the wheel slammed the gas pedal to the floor, trying to pull them from the brink of disaster. Again, the engine sputtered as they twisted through the alleys, but instead of fading, it roared back as if fueled by primal instinct. Emily's heart raced in rhythm with the engine, each beat pounding like a war drum echoing in the night. "Keep your head down," the driver yelled, glancing sharply in the rearview mirror. His grip on the wheel tightened, knuckles going white as he shifted into another tight turn. Ahead, a set of dim lights flickered like beacons in the dark. "There, the docks," he shouted, a spark of hope igniting in his voice. But hope in this nightmare felt as fragile as glass. "Do you think we can get there first?" Sarah whimpered, her voice near breaking as she squeezed Emily's hand with desperate urgency. Emily opened her mouth to answer, but terror swamped her throat. In that moment, Victor's vehicle gave chase, roaring like a hungry beast on their tail. The man behind the wheel was losing confidence. She could feel it, a tremor in his movements, a shaky breath escaping his lips. "Faster! We have to outsmart him," Emily urged, her voice rising above the cacophony of fear. But just as they dashed through the opening, a shriek cut through the night. The sickening crunch of metal against metal filled the air. The van slammed to a halt as the rear tires screeched helplessly against the asphalt. "Get out, now," the driver shouted, flinging open the door before jumping into the night. Emily and Sarah followed blindly, adrenaline carrying them. The cold air hammered against their faces, a shocking reminder of the danger looming behind them. They raced toward the murky water of the docks, hearts pounding like a war drum. But the darkness was alive, moving and shifting. The threat that haunted them was all-consuming, coiling tighter around their throats, squeezing out their breath. "Where do we go?" Sarah gasped, looking left and right, panic etched on her face. "Over there." Emily pointed toward a decrepit warehouse, its silhouette looming like a haunted castle. "It might have a way through somewhere to hide." They bolted toward the structure, shadows dancing like phantoms in the flickering streetlights. The door creaked ominously as they shoved it open, alerting anything lurking within. It smelt of mildew and secrets long buried. Shadows stretched across the floor, and Emily felt her skin crawl, realizing they were not alone. "Please," Sarah whimpered, glancing back towards the entrance. "Just breathe," Emily hissed, her heart hammering in her chest. "We have to find a way to lock the door." Fumbling around in the darkness, Emily fumbled with the heavy door, hearing footsteps approaching through the night. All they had was time that shrank with every heartbeat echoing in her ears. Behind them, the van's lights flared again. There was Victor, crawling toward them like a viper, ever patient and dangerous. She could feel his gaze, can almost touch the cold steel of his resolve. "Here," Sarah shouted, pulling a rusty chain off a crate. In her haste, it clinked loudly, cutting through the silence, a shivering sound that echoed off the warehouse walls like a warning bell. "Lock it," Emily urged, fear coursing through her veins. But as Sarah rushed to secure the door, the heavy wooden frame began to shudder, rattling against its rusty hinges. "Emily." The urgency in her voice was palpable, but the sound of something thrashing just outside made Emily freeze. "Stay quiet," Emily gasped, trying to steady her breath as they braced their bodies against the door, desperation lending them strength. They held as whispers of night crept into the crevices, the darkness thick enough to choke on. Outside, a figure loomed, shifting beneath the flickering light like a predator tasting its prey. Emily's eyes widened as the realization hit her. It wasn't just Victor. There were others, shadows emerging from behind him, each one more menacing than the last. She clutched Sarah's hand hard, her mind racing with possibilities. What did they want? What secrets lay buried that Victor was willing to kill for? Are you ready for the truth? Asked the driver, appearing behind them, breathless and pale. His expression was a mix of shock and determination as he looked around. Emily's heart dropped. What truth? But before he could answer, the door buckled under a relentless force, splintering wood like kindling. With wide eyes, Emily realized they had only moments left. Run, she shouted, adrenaline surging through her limbs. Just as the door broke apart, a chilling urgency settled over them. They needed to escape not just from Victor, but from something far worse lurking in the depths of the shadows. What truth lay in the dark that could change everything they knew? The warehouse creaked and moaned as the door shuddered under the weight of their pursuers. Emily felt the vibrations resonate through her bones, panic twisting in her gut. They had to move. With a final, desperate shove, the door flew off its hinges, and Victor charged in like a thunderstorm, flanked by the specters of his henchmen. Go, she yelled, pushing Sarah forward. They sprinted deeper into the shadows of the warehouse, their breath coming in jagged gasps, hearts racing like wild stallions. Emily turned a quick glance back, catching a flash of Victor's icy glare, and her stomach dropped. They ducked behind a series of decrepit crates, trying to stifle their gasps. Emily pressed her back against the cold, damp wood, fear coursing through her veins like fire. She could hear Victor's voice, low and taunting, slicing through the dark like a knife. Don't run, Emily. You can't hide from the truth, he called out, his tone smooth yet menacing. You think this is just about me? No, darling. It's so much bigger. Sarah's trembling hand clutched Emily's arm. What does he mean? She whimpered, eyes wide with terror. I don't know, Emily whispered back, her throat dry. But we need to find a way out of here. The warehouse was labyrinthine, filled with stacks of old machinery and forgotten tools, a perfect hiding spot or a deadly trap. They crawled under a dusty pipeline, adrenaline driving them forward. As they heard footsteps approaching, they pressed themselves deeper into the shadows. The echo of laughter reverberated off the walls, sending chills down her spine. Behind them, a door slammed shut, and a figure entered the space, silhouetted against the faint light streaming in from a broken window. Emily barely dared to breathe. It was Victor, smug and relentless. Did you really think you could escape? He taunted, his voice echoing through the empty space. I know every corner of this place. The tension twisted tighter, a rubber band ready to snap. Emily and Sarah peered from their hiding spot, expecting Victor to lead a charge. Instead, he lingered, waiting. Emily could see the shadows behind him, his men flanking the exits, their faces obscured but their intentions clear. Whispers of voices flickered around them. Emily caught bits of conversation, little fragments that floated through the air. They're looking for the files, one of them said, another muttering about the truth being exposed. Files? What files? Sarah asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. I don't know. Emily shot back, breathless. But we can't stick around to find out. They waited a heartbeat longer, then bolted again, darting down an alley of stacked boxes. The sounds of pursuit rose behind them, footsteps echoing harshly on the concrete floor. They were close now, the hunters hot on their trail. Over here, Emily spotted an opening at the far end, illuminated by the faint glow of streetlights spilling in through shattered glass panels. Freedom was so close. They pushed toward it, urgency fueling their movements, but then stopped them. Victor shouted, rage boiling over. The atmosphere thickened with dread as shadows rushed after them, closing in like a noose. They darted through the gap into the open air, stumbling into the night. But the dawning realization hit Emily hard. They were trapped at the docks with nowhere to go. The murky water loomed ominously before them, the dark waves lapping hungrily at the shore. What now? Sarah gasped, eyes wide with panic. Desperation clawed at Emily's chest. She could feel Victor looming behind them, his aura a palpable threat. We can't let him corner us, she panted, scanning the area for any sign of escape. Suddenly, an idea crystallized in her mind. The boat. It's our only chance. She pointed toward a dilapidated vessel bobbing lazily in the dark water, its hull weathered but intact. But what if Sarah began, but Emily silenced her with a look. Now or never. They raced toward the boat, leaping over the rough wooden beams as the splashes of running feet thundered behind them. As they reached the vessel, Emily shoved her hands against the side, grappling with the slick surface as adrenaline pushed her forward. No. Victor's voice rang out, frantically gaining ground. She could sense the rage bubbling just behind them. She turned to Sarah, urgency etched on her features. Get in. With a forceful shove, they clambered aboard, Emily pulling on the frayed rope attached to the rudder. Her heart was racing, pounding a long-forgotten beat of survival and hope until she saw Victor's shadow fall over the boat. Just as Emily began to untie the rope, a figure appeared beside her. One of Victor's men had made it. Get back, she yelled, but the words barely escaped her lips before he lunged. In a wild miscalculation, Emily defended herself instinctively, pushing him back just as Sarah reached for a rusted pipe lying on the deck. The moment surged with tension, one side fighting for freedom while the other clung to power. Victor's laughter echoed behind them. They realized that the tether to their past was snapping away. But the question loomed in the air like a storm. How far would they go to uncover the truth that could shatter them all? Before adrift, as they fought on the slippery deck, new uncertainties shadowed their escape. They needed answers, but would the truth set them free or drag them deeper into danger? Emily and Sarah scrabbled on the boat, adrenaline surging through them as they desperately defended their lives against Victor's muscle. The water sloshed beneath them, the small vessel rocking violently as they fought. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of fear and resolve. No turning back now. Get the engine started, Emily shouted, her voice tinged with urgency as she fended off another attack. Sarah, wide-eyed and frightened, darted to the controls. She fumbled with the ancient engine, panic threatening to stifle her. It's stuck. I can't get it to turn over. Emily's hands were shaking, but she forced herself to focus. You have to. I'll hold him off. With a fierce determination, she turned to face Victor's henchman. The man charged forward, but Emily was fueled by a cocktail of fear and adrenaline. She swung the rusted pipe she had claimed, landing a sharp blow that sent him staggering back. Come on. Sarah's voice wavered as she pleaded with the engine. The man lunged again, and Emily ducked, narrowly avoiding a punch that would have knocked her sideways. She could feel the air shift as he charged, but she pushed back, refusing to yield an inch. The tension was suffocating, every second feeling like an hour. Just then, she heard a sputter followed by a dull thrum. The engine was alive. Go, go, Emily urged, her voice raw. With newfound hope, Sarah twisted the throttle, sending the boat lurching away from the dock and deeper into the water. Emily barely had time to breathe before she swung at the man again, desperation giving her strength. He stumbled but quickly regained balance, determination blazing in his eyes. Victor's voice rang out from the dock. You think you can escape this easily? You have no idea what you're up against. The darkness of his words sank into the night air like lead, but the boat surged forward. Freedom lay ahead. Emily turned, her eyes scanning the horizon over the murky water. The shadows of the city seemed to breathe, looming as if they wanted to pull her back into the depths of her nightmare. Which direction? Sarah shouted over the increasing roar of the engine. Anywhere but here, Emily replied, heart pounding as the boat picked up speed. The figures on the dock grew smaller behind them, but she knew that Victor wouldn't stop until he had them back. The panic coursed through her veins as the reality hit Simon, the man who had rescued them. Hadn't made it onto the boat. He was still out there. Emily. Sarah's voice broke her thoughts, cutting through the chaos. What do we do now? We can't hide forever. We need to find a safe place, Emily replied, urgency driving her. Somewhere there's help. Help? The tension was palpable. What if there isn't any? What if Victor has everything covered? Emily swallowed hard. The harsh truth hung between them. It was unlikely they'd get far without tools and allies. Just as she opened her mouth to reassure her friend, Victor's laughter echoed again, cutting through the air, chilling her to the bone. That a thought flickered in her mind, a memory of the faces she had seen on that monitor. The truth they had uncovered in Victor's hidden room was still out there, lurking. We can expose him. The urgency crystallized. They needed more than just escape. We can't just run, Emily said, her voice firm. We need to fight back. Tell someone who will listen. There was a moment of realization in Sarah's eyes. But do we even know how? Trust me. We can do this together. We'll find a way out, and we'll force the truth into the light. Sarah took a deep breath, nodding slowly, the fire of determination igniting in her. Just then, Emily spotted the glow of lights emerging from the shore as they rounded a bend. They were coming upon a small fishing town, its lights twinkling like stars in the darkened sky. There, Emily pointed. We can ask for help there. Victor's voice was still anchored in her mind, but the sight of hope grounded her. This is our chance, Emily urged, urging Sarah to steer toward the shore. With every heartbeat, the docks grew closer, and each second felt like a countdown. Emily could feel Victor's shadow loom over them still, his relentless pursuit not yet over. As they reached the dock, they hopped off the boat and ran toward the nearest building, a small fishing shack. They dashed through an open door. Inside, the scent of salt and old fish filled the air as Emily turned sharply to face Sarah. We can't stop now. We need to call someone. Sarah's voice wavered, but was grounded by the wrenching fear of their reality. Get a phone, anything. We can alert the police, the media. Just then, the sound of gravel crunching outside brought all their fears crashing back. They exchanged terrified glances. He is coming. Emily's heart raced, but she fueled the fire in her spirit. We're going to get through this, she said, resolutely. The night was still dark, and there was still much to overcome, but they had a foothold at last, a way to expose Victor. They moved to the window, peeking through the slats. Just outside, Victor stood silhouetted against the moonlight, flanked by shadows of his men. It's now or never, Emily breathed, feeling the weight of every choice they'd made. Together, they would fight for their lives and the lives of those Victor had taken. As the door creaked ominously in the wind behind them, Emily resolved to break the silence once and for all with the truth. The impending confrontation loomed like a storm, and together, they would face it head-on. If you're feeling the adrenaline rush from this cliffhanger, you need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive content that dives even deeper into the dark secrets of Victor Hargrove. Smash that like button now to show your support and fuel this community's fire, because every click counts. Flood the comments section with your wild theories and reactions to this shocking conclusion. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to know how this all ends. The fate of Emily and Sarah hangs in the balance, and you're part of this unfolding journey.